the sites of interest, which I just stated a little earlier, and that we will defer any kind of recommendation on an action plan until after we've done more citizen participation work and had more discussion with the council. I also want to propose that we include in our recommendations condemnation. And condemnation with in summary, something like this with further refinement than I'm about to give it, but that we are interested in retaining in an ordinance the powers of condemnation for any property that has buildings that have had no economic activity and are blighted, and have been so for 5 years, for at least 5 years.
And that we have the ability to do something. We don't have to, but that we can.
And that is in the city's interest to do something.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would like to make that proposal and see if we have agreement. And once again, I'm most interested in first seeing if we have agreement, because I want input from the CAC on that approach, which I think would be of value.
Do you have a sense of how many properties fall into that category?
Only the properties of interest that are listed, Griswold's, Capital Center Towers, and Reliable Steel. There's no other properties that, and this is just a proposal, and I think it needs further refinement, because I want to get more feedback about this, but at the same time, I don't want to miss an opportunity of mentioning condemnation.
I'm in agreement with that. I've actually sort of felt that having that tool available to us right from the get-go, I thought was important, and so I appreciate that you're bringing this up, because I think that this is something that is an important tool to have, and especially if we have that 5-year point, that really helps, not, and because I think there's a lot of fear around sort of that there's this net that has too much bycatch, as they say in the fishing business, but that rather we just catch exactly what we're looking to catch with it. And I think this does that. Again, with perhaps some refinement from the attorneys or whatever.
Well, we need more feedback.
But sort of at this point, I'm very much in agreement with that.
Keith?
Do you want to have that discussion with the CAC then on the 20th? So
Yeah.
we should add that then to the agenda.
Yes. I think basically at this point I want it to be. I feel like it's encapsulated in what the ad hoc committee's recommendations are.
Okay. So could I suggest adding another bullet then to item number 4?
Yes.
Okay.
You can, and actually under 4, I would include all the things that I had said that we were in agreement about, which is boundary governance,
right.
Sites of interest, definition of blight, and condemnation.
So, Mr. Mayorman, I'm in agreement with you on all of that, except I would also hold sites of interest at a preliminary point right now. I don't feel I've completed my own due diligence on that. So I have no problem with the 5 that you've mentioned.
I just want to point out that my home is not in the area of consideration, so I just give up on that now.
And then one other thing, if I may, in our discussion of the boundary proposal, I think that we need a clear statement as to why we've gone for the robot, why it is that we have a long arm reaching out of the central core. I don't have any problem with the boundary that we're proposing, but I think that that we just need to be able to explain to folks why we're doing what we're doing. And I don't think that we've made that, I don't think we've clarified that statement yet.
What I'm not sure about what you're saying now is whether or not we have agreement about that.
No, I think we do.
Okay.
Of the boundary, but I don't know that we have a, oh, I'm sorry.
I think it relates to everything that I said in purpose.
And I think that we had, in our last meeting in this room, I think that we had a pretty thorough discussion about why this boundary should be selected. I just think we need to reduce it to paper at some point, so that we can explain it to others.
So, and I think I'm pointing directly at our consultant right now.
Can you
Well,
feel
I
it?
can't see you.
Come on, Lorelei, work with me here.
Yeah, no, we can, I'll want to talk with Keith about this and you all and make sure that this works, but what we could do is update our options memo to include some of these other pieces that you just talked about. Those would be the properties of interest and the approach to condemnation, and highlight the decisions that were made and why. And I think it would be good for them to see the options that you considered, and the one that you ended up focused on in the end.
Yeah, and actually, when I look back through the minutes of that discussion, I think there's good things to draw from in terms of why we didn't go with the other two options that were considered.
A very full discussion on.
Yeah, so thanks, Laurel. I think that's a good solution. Is that acceptable?
That's great.
Okay, so do we, I'm assuming we've got an agenda for the 20th.
Sounds good.
Okay, and the only thing that I'm anxious about, and you know, we have a loyal group of CAC members, but this is mapped out as a pretty long meeting. So I don't know if we, I'm presuming that putting fishtail beer on the menu is probably not possible. The city manager just gave the thumbs down to that, so he's no fun.
We can provide an array of refreshments.
Okay, but, so I think we need to.
Not a certain point.
I am a little worried when somebody sees the length of the meeting. So I think maybe we can emphasize, you know, right, our gratitude for people who participate, that you know, for those that can participate, we would be grateful, and acknowledge that it is a long meeting. We'll do our best to accommodate.
I have heard from the planning commission reps that both of them are out of town for the meeting, and they're considering alternates.
Mm. Darn. Yeah, we've never discussed directly alternates to the CAC, but so I just I'll share what I'm thinking about this. I don't think we ever empowered CAC to send alternates.
Okay.
I think we had we were doing a very specific thing and trying to build some continuity in a conversation. I'm interested in feedback on that. I'm not interested in being rigid in terms of who participates in the design charrette or participates in an ongoing way on the CAC, but I think that we gave some very tough consideration to who to bring to the table and how to try to focus the conversation. It wasn't it wasn't the I mean, it's just like with any advisory committee. If a PPAC member can't make it, do they send an alternate? I don't think so. This is a sort of an ad hoc group, and why I think it sort of defies the purpose is that what we're suggesting is people are thinking of this as a representational body. It's not very. It isn't structured to be balanced, and it's just we're reaching out to a few folks. And that's why, in some ways, I don't want to get it confused with a citizen participation process.
Mhm.
We need to do that too. So I'm assuming that my comments could be provocative, so I'm looking for feedback.
Well, I agree with you, actually, and I'm disappointed to hear that there are some who won't be able to make it. Have you heard from other CAC members at this point?
Mike Reed with Court said he would be driving from Tacoma, maybe around 5, so meeting starts at 6:30. I told him to keep his chair open and warm, and again, that we provide refreshments and sustenance.
With the agenda adjustments that we've made, we've blown through 9 p.m. and we're more like 11:30, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for Mike. So I agree with the mayor and your comments. I think that perhaps, well, I just don't know how to provide active communication with the Planning Commission as a whole. I agree with you that those folks who happen to be members of the Planning Commission and members of the CAC are not necessarily there to represent the Planning Commission.
The mayor is...
They do provide an important communication link, however.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the mayor is attending the Planning Commission meeting on the 18th in advance of the CAC meeting on the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically to talk about the relationship between the CRA plan and the the downtown plan. Bring them up to speed where we are and where we're going.
So, and I would reinforce, this is just one of many meetings. It's not, we're trying to get some feedback, and I think we do the best with what we've got. And
let Chair Parker know.
The other thing that we might suggest is that if a member of the Planning Commission wants to come observe, they certainly would be welcome.
It's an open meeting. Anybody's welcome to.
That's a great suggestion. You can come as an observer. It would be hard to participate effectively at this point, having not been small group meetings, having been to other CAC meetings. I think that's a really good suggestion.
They haven't been through Lorelei's ringer.
Right, exactly.
I'm wondering how you're going to get finance committee and planning commission engaged.
Magic.
Yeah.
It's mirrors.
It's kind of the way Langer is in
And,
two places tonight.
Just recommend them to ask you later, but
No, it's, I discussed with staff, the Planning Commission has accommodated me late on their agenda. They're scheduled to go to 9. I am not anticipating the Finance Committee going beyond 7:15 at the latest. I'm hoping to be done by 7. But,
Great.
yeah. Just for the record, I'm going to be with the Farmers Market Board that night too. So, just to let you know.
I think budget staff are relieved to hear this.
Yeah, right. It's not to say that the Finance Committee can't keep on talking without me. Anyway, fully capable members on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, did we get to where we need to be? And I think we should try to streamline this as best we can, but I do think that we should not go later than 9 o'clock on the 20th. I think we can strive to be brief where possible. I certainly will. I don't intend to use 10 minutes. I don't mind these time frames. actually, when a final agenda goes out, I don't know that you need to have the annotations of time
No.
allocations other than the general range, so that people understand the expectation. But yeah, Lorelei, go ahead. I was gonna go to you next.
I had one thing we might be able to do to streamline this a little bit is to combine agenda items 2 and 3 into one presentation that's 20 minutes. Because they have already seen the feasibility study.
Good.
It's been updated, and they have already seen the investment strategy that's also been updated. I think we can be pretty efficient in the way that we present that information, and combine them into a story that says, look, we looked at the big context, here's how downtown fits into that and why we're focused on it, and here's what the feasibility study says about community renewal in downtown, and use that as a setup for what I think will be the more meaty part of the presentation, which is the ad hoc committee recommendation, which probably is going to need more than 20 minutes now that we've added the issue of condemnation into the list for discussion.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that might help to streamline it a little bit.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'll make that revision.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions, Lorelei?
Yeah, I do have a few. I'm not sure if now is the right time to go through it. Just sort of trying to think through, under agenda item number 5, what it is exactly that you mean by consensus moving forward, and whether you all have ideas about how that conversation would best be facilitated. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, but that's something that can happen offline if you have other agenda items to tackle tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. I think in summary, you know, I think in summary, it isn't necessarily that we need to have you in the hot seat for that. I think that what I'm sort of hearing, and Nathaniel, I want your direct feedback on this. I think what we're primarily after there is facilitating feedback from the CAC and really hearing from them, hearing their thoughts, hearing where they are.
Right, exactly. That was the intention.
Yeah, so I think the modification would be to just drop the consensus part, and really it is facilitating that discussion for
Got it.
Very insights, and we want to welcome their insights and their
Whether it's consensus or not.
right, thoughts and contributions.
Only people who agree with us can talk.
Yeah.
But we do want their buy-in to the design charrette process, and we want them to acknowledge the overall process for CRA that we're pursuing.
That's certainly the hope. And the design charrette is a new number 5, actually, from my count here now.
Correct.
So 2 and 3 are combined. 4 is now 3, 5 is now 4, and then we have sort of a new number 5, which is the design charrette. And okay.
So does this non-consensus to move forward drop out of number 4 and come down to part of the wrap-up?
My guess is that in an ideal world, you'd like to hear consensus to move forward with CRA, but really what you're looking for is understanding the range of issues and concerns that people have, and just trying to take the temperature of the room.
Exactly.
Yeah, and again, I'm hoping for a high level of agreement on methods, and then understanding what next steps are. That's really what I would like to leave the room with. Is good.
Good. That's good.
Okay, then Lorelei, thank you. We've got two other items on our agenda for tonight. You're welcome to, of course, stay on the line, but I just feel guilty that I can't offer you cookies. I can mail them to you, but it's just not the same.
That's true, it's not the same. So unless you think there's reason for me to stick around in here, that I'll probably leave you to your cookies and go find my own dinner.
I think that's probably wise.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you all, and Keith, I'll be following up just to make sure that we have our,
Sounds good.
stuff coordinated here.
Right on, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Lorelei.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care. Have a good dinner.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Okay, so that brings us to agenda item 3D and use of funds for community development block grant, from community development block grant program. And go for it.
I need committee feedback and input in regards to preparing for the meeting on the 26th. My understanding is that the General Government Committee has asked for feedback from the Community Renewal Ad Hoc Committee regarding the use of CDBG dollars for economic development. Clearly, as we've gone through improving our consolidated plan, that's been the direction that the council has discussed. So we need to close the loop and have this joint meeting with the General Government Committee to talk about any ideas that the CRA has in regards to use of CDBG funds. As we talk about the Section 108 loan program, obviously there's a lot of overlap there, and my understanding is the General Government Committee is interested in that overlap and how those programs potentially relate.
The 26th or 19th?
The 26th. We have a special session starting at 5:30.
Got it, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we don't need these anymore,
Nope.
right? Yeah. Unless Roger is easier for you.
Here's-
is it?
You're welcome.
No, that's fine.
Thanks.
I can hear,
that.
let's move.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
So I think I can give some quick feedback if that's your interest. I have 2 points and I guess a question. Is that okay with Daniel?
Sure, please.
So, I think it's of value to just have a discussion about the range of use of community development block grant for economic development purposes. And one simple way to talk about this is, I think of our annual block grant allocation as it's basically general purpose money. You can do it for anything that's eligible in the act. We could use the general purpose money for much more hardcore economic development things. For example, if we come up with a CRA action plan, it could roll into the CRA action plan around economic development. We could do we could do very concrete things on the isthmus building. We could do infrastructure improvements that are eligible under the act. But again, this is for the general purpose. We can do any of those kinds of things. So that's number one, just clarify, I think. I think that might be useful to have that discussion. Number two, we regularly receive program income from our housing rehab loan fund. We could channel that program income to be an economic development revolving loan fund. And Thurston County Economic Development Council or Enterprise for Equity for that matter, to just operate a economic development revolving loan fund and channel all program income in that direction. That's another option for economic development. A third option could be working off of the statute and crafting a request for proposals under the general purpose program for people to respond to, saying, you know, there's X amount of dollars available. Here are all the eligible activities under economic development, and put it out there for proposals. I think, you know, it's very similar to what we've done in the past with CDBG, except we're really tightening the criteria for the request for proposals. And then the last option is one that I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but the email I sent you clarifying what I wanted from Michelle about using general purpose money to make one-away loan repayments. I don't know if you, and that's a fourth option, is to essentially work with our consultant to determine the feasibility of using our, once we have a 108 program, or once we have a 108 loan, I believe that we have an option to use our own community development block grant money, our annual money, to make the loan repayments.
Yes.
And then
We'll be talking about that in a minute.
okay, so then, since we're going to talk about this in a minute, just in summary, what that does for us is it provides a different way to incentivize 108, and it in sort of a long way around, it creates program income that from an eventual repayment from a 108 loan recipient, but it's essentially a loan deferral process. But I'm being cryptic only because I don't want to talk
Right,
about
yeah,
this.
there's a lot more in there, but.
Yeah.
Procedurally, but essentially, yes.
So do those things help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and if that sounds like you know, a substantive conversation, I'm sure staff can help flesh those points out a little bit more, but I'm happy to talk more with staff to flesh them out. Is that a worthwhile conversation?
It's a worthwhile conversation. I guess I was expecting this conversation to go a little different direction, or a little further.
I was counting on you to do that.
Well, dang, I was
That's
hoping.
what's next.
Yeah, I was so hoping, but I was imagining that we would be dealing with criteria related to things like job creation or infrastructure that benefits low and moderate income, or I'm sorry, or housing, for example, but that we would want to be more targeted than the level of discussion that we've had thus far. So that's what my expectation was for this discussion with on the 26th. And I don't know that we're well positioned for that, or if that's the intent, but I was expecting that that's what this ad hoc committee would be bringing to that discussion, would be some target areas. And I think that works within the framework that you've just looked at.
Yeah, so I'm not meaning to be flip about this, but I really did, and I have the same interest, but I think I just want to refine what you're saying. So the first 4 points, I think those are general education kinds of things in terms of options. And there are ways that we could consider to use CDBG. I think that we should go back to the conversation about what are we trying to accomplish under the rubric of economic development? What's our purpose? And I think that is a conversation that should happen on this at this point in time. I was hoping that conversation could be informed a little bit about what the flexibility is within the program. So in terms of what I think, what I'd like to see in terms of the purpose, I want to keep the council on track for its goals. So the big banner headline, as far as I'm concerned, is increasing commerce downtown and citywide. I'd like to continue to be focused on that goal. So the larger banner is increasing commerce. I would like to have the conversation about, well, what are some of the things that we want to pursue under increasing commerce. And I think we have some natural allies that we should work with on this. I think our contract with the Economic Development Council is part of that. So I'm hoping that we will have so the Economic Development Council, it'd be great if the Economic Development Council came up with 5 EB5 eligible projects for pursuit in our downtown. And that, those projects might include some aspect of community development block. I'm also hoping that the Economic Development Council can be thoughtful about other projects that they think could help us jumpstart commerce in downtown. How can we best help our retail community? And if we want to help our retail community, what are the kinds of things that are on the table for that? It's like helping our retail community if there's job creation as a result, or what measures are there going to be? Business attraction as a job creation element. And then in the same front, our visitor and convention bureau. I would ask BCB as a natural ally, what is it that you can recommend to us that would help us jumpstart commerce downtown? And see what could be on the table from that. Is this helping out?
Yeah, I am not clear what the product of the 26th is. Is it a briefing, or are we looking for specific feedback from the council as a whole?
My
In general
understanding
direction.
is that it's the CRA going to the General Government Committee and saying, this is what we're working on from and with the CDBG dollars in regards to economic development. This is where we suggest the city go with these funds and with this program.
And forgive me, but I'm not remembering the calendar for CDBG, where we are.
So yeah, we came a month ago, I guess, to the council to outline that, and basically, there's some flexibility between now and mid-spring, April-ish, May maybe, to develop the action plan essentially for what we would do with CDBG dollars in program year 2014, which starts next September, goes through August of 2015. So we're looking ahead at that program year and looking for how will we invest what we think will be 400,000 or so of allocation that we could each roughly each year from the feds, although that's subject to change, but that's been a popular where we've been with that. So there is some flexibility. GGC General Government Committee had been tasked with at least starting that with 15% going to social services and trying to figure that part out, and the remainder being economic development. As we mentioned just a minute ago, the CRA Committee is looking at Section 108 and other tools that might use CDBG funds in the future. And my understanding from the General Government Committee is that's the part that they felt like they needed an update from the CRA ad hoc committee on those discussions, because they will or could use or influence CDBG expenditures in the future. And so that's, I think, the purpose of this work session, to help them then move forward with their portion of the recommendation on CDBG funding to come back to council.
And as I recall, they, with regard to the operating or the human services component of that, their recommendation was not necessarily to go for 15%, but for specific, for downtown ambassadors funding, and that the balance of it would go into an economic development activity.
Right.
Is that correct?
That was about, yeah, I'd say that's the gist of the discussion. I don't think they got to an actual recommendation yet. They've asked staff to go flesh out the ambassador program, essentially additional lean team member for that program, and bring that back. Alley lighting was another piece of that they were looking at. So, okay. There was some discussion about whether that's economic development or what that is, where that fits, but that's what they tasked the staff with coming back with.
Actually, so what, alley lighting is an eligible activity.
Mm-hmm.
It is an eligible activity. It was,
So,
is it economic development, is it infrastructure?
yeah, and actually, that
might be both.
in some ways, I mean, if we focus on the expanding commerce downtown, I think this could, I think having a conversation as a council about tools and methods and what our purpose is, in the purpose of getting downtown unstuck, there is a safety element, so lighting downtown. That could be a good conversation. I think some council members, I think, would appreciate it. Just, again, it's sort of, I think it's okay to be, we have a little bit of time here. So in terms of what you're looking for as an outcome of this meeting, I think we're talking some shared communication between two committees. Representing, we're trying to really operationalize strategies that contribute to meeting the goal of increasing commerce.
So, my feedback on that is I'm in. I think that makes good sense, and philosophically, my interest is in using resources that reinforce each other, right? So that we are bringing to bear what resources we have that leverage each other and work together, rather than the peanut butter approach. Right. And so, to the extent possible, we use CRA and CDBG and Section 108 all in concert with each other, and other possible resources as well, so that we focus our strategy. That's my hope. To what extent that furthers this discussion, I'm not sure, but that makes sense to me.
Just gonna add that we've been in the CDBG business for 30 years.
Since 1983.
So during that period of time, the city's focus has been primarily on housing rehab. So, we're really talking about turning the ship pretty dramatically here. So this is an ongoing conversation, and we're sort of in mid-term right now, and it may take us a couple more cycles to get this fully pointed towards economic development. I really like where the General Government Committee was going with social services and lining those dollars up also with economic development, because you're absolutely right. Safety downtown is an important economic development objective. No safety, no economic development. So there's good things to be had, and I really like the thoughts about how do we line this all up, because we don't have an infinite pool of funds here, so we really have to be smart about how we're using them. CDBG is one of our limited pool of funds that we can put towards something like ISMIS. Section 108, again, something, how are we going to move this forward? Well, we don't have a lot of options. So CDBG dollars would definitely help. So that sounds like a great discussion, and I think with that input, I can help develop a staff report that at least launch that conversation.
My only reaction is that I think you're a little more patient in terms of taking a couple cycles to turn the ship. I understand your comment. Sooner is better.
We follow council's lead. So council says, we're not funding social service this year, we're funding social service in a different way, towards a different objective. Obviously, that's what we'll do.
I'm good if you're good.
Let's move the agenda.
All right.
Okay, so then, last item is 108, I believe.
Yes, we have two issues. One is the Section 108 loan program. I just wanted Leonard to give you guys an update on where we are with that. We continue to work with NDC in underwriting possible loans, and we thought it'd be a good idea to come in. Since we have you this evening, we'll give you an update. Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
So I'm gonna pass these around. So let me start. I did the wrong thing already. Gave you the handout, and I want to talk about the intro into it while everybody's reading it. But no, it's very short. So last meeting in this room, talked about a number of projects. Michelle Moreland was here from the NBC to go through the status of those, and the committee directed us to focus primarily on. Really, there were two possible projects in the old Sears building, the old personnel building over here in Legion and Franklin, I think there, and also potential infrastructure projects that the city may have that could be eligible. And part of the reason that we're back tonight is a timing issue. I think we mentioned at that time our Section 108 program needs to close a loan by the end of April to maintain our eligibility as a city with the Section 108 funds and maintain the ability to use those. And as we look at kind of all the steps, including HUD's review both at the national and the regional level, the necessity to have a common period of public hearing on changes to the CDBG action plan to include whatever Section 108 loan project the council decides on, we are back up to next Tuesday for the council to look at potential Section 108 loan project that we can move forward with that process with. This is not only an update, but I hope that we can have the committee's recommendation to move the project that I just handed out forward to the council next week to begin that public process. And what we have is an infrastructure project. Before I go to the details of that, we have been and continue to pursue the two projects at the old personnel building. Developer, Walker John, is working towards closing on acquiring that property by the end of this month. He's not quite ready to look at the loan, which would actually be for design costs and additional work that he would have to do after that point. The tenant project, one of the tenants there we've looked at and continue to work with them, potentially as a loan for some of their equipment costs to be needed, what would be a roof up ultimately in that building. Those two projects under Section 108 eligibility criteria would be mutually exclusive. It's one or the other. If you're loaning to a private party for economic development, you're looking at how many jobs you're creating, and essentially they'd be counting the same jobs. So it's one project or the other. So while those projects are not necessarily out of the running at this point, they're just not ready. And because of this timing issue, we're needing as a city to move forward with a project that we can continue the public process and get closed in time to maintain loan eligibility. So I'll make that clear up front. There's still a possibility, if the council chooses, to continue to pursue one or the other of those loans. In addition to what I brought before you, that's a possibility, it's an option that's out there.
Could I interrupt? It's an option, but it doesn't solve the immediate need of doing something by a certain deadline. So we must do something else.
We're down to probably this as being the primary way to meet that deadline at this time.
Okay.
What I'm saying is it doesn't preclude the possibility of also pursuing a loan with the one or the other of those two projects.
But at a later date.
But at a later date.
Okay.
And additional costs, obviously. So we can come back to that, and I'll just go over this project, which we worked out with great assistance from the Public Works Department here and the city engineer to look at what are the possible infrastructure projects that are not yet funded, that are in our CFP as unfunded projects, and could move forward and be Section 108 eligible. And this seems to be one that meets all those criteria. So it's sidewalk improvements along Capitol Way, at 10th Avenue and up to Union, and ADA accessible ramps on the corners of 10th and Capitol, with the bulb outs as a city policy. And then also, if the funding, right now what we have is a rough cost estimate, if the funding allows, also include a bulb out at Capitol Way 8th Avenue. To be part of the project as well. It's all within a low to moderate income census block, and so it's eligible under an area-wide benefit for Section 108. It's also the ADA ramps themselves are a specific eligible activity. And the total project cost, as you can see, is estimated right now at $345,000 for all of these improvements. The sidewalk improvements, if you look on the photo underneath, is in the longer section there between 10th and Union. Essentially, kind of the Wagners and that block where you walk that very often, you know, the sidewalk's in very poor shape and is a real hazard, a trip hazard in a number of places there. And so having that included, as well as all the bulb outs at the crossing there at 10th, would be a huge improvement for both ADA and for all pedestrians. Back at your last meeting, it was mentioned that the Fifth Avenue project, which is between Capitol and Columbia, we did look at that, but actually the city does have some funding for that project, and the amount that would be remaining, the gap that would be remaining was really too small to be part of the consideration for this. So I wanted to let you know we did look into that, and that's why that one is included. So the proposal would be fund this project. The Public Works Department would be able to begin design right away after the first of the year, or as soon as the project is approved, and then work on design through 2014. The project right now is within all the right-of-way, so don't think we'll need any additional acquisition. Could probably go to bid by the end of 2015 or January 2016 for construction. Mid-2016. And as a Section 108 loan, as was mentioned earlier, we have the ability to repay that from future allocations of CDBG funds, so pledging some portion of future allocations. As I mentioned, we're about 400,000 a year has been roughly the amount we've been getting in allocations. We're still working on terms of this loan, but as an example, if it was a 5-year payback period, it would be about 70,000 a year. The current floating CDBG rate is 0.7%, and so that would be about 16% of the allocation each year going to repayment of the debt on this program, on this project for 5 years. So that is one scenario that could be included in the loan terms. We have a lot of flexibility in those loan terms, and we're working with Michelle on the specific proposal to bring to council next week, but I think it'll be probably something like what I just described. If you have questions, I'll stop there and take those and then get your thoughts.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've talked about this initial loan could be a relatively small amount of money just to get the fund established and the process established.
Mm-hmm.
Since this project already exists in our CFP, it sounds as though it may be possible for a portion of it to be funded out of our capital program and some portion of it to be funded out of the loan program, so that we could get it underway, but we also could not erode 108 and its ability to create a revolving loan fund.
So, yeah, and as a reminder, the total amount that we're eligible for under the 108 fund is 1.7 million. So it would be still a relatively small portion, but yes, right now it's an unfunded project in the CFP. There's no identified funding. It's an out-year project.
I didn't understand that.
And that's actually necessary so that you're not displacing funds.
You can't say plan.
Okay.
Yeah, but if for example,